Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
When I walked into the living room that Saturday morning, I wasn't expecting to see pieces of my brand new laptop scattered across the hardwood floor like someone had smashed a damn mirror in the middle of a Greek wedding. For a moment, I honestly thought I was looking at something else, maybe a broken picture frame or one of Mom's useless glass candle holders from the clearance bin at HomeGoods. But then I saw the sticker I had on the bottom, the one that said "Cyber Girls Don't Cry," and my stomach turned over so fast it felt like I'd missed a stair in the dark. I dropped my grocery bags by the front door without thinking and just stood there, silent, staring at the cracked screen, the busted hinge, the exposed circuitry that looked like a tiny heart ripped open. My heart? It might have still been beating, but it wasn't calm. Not even close. I didn't even get a full minute of stunned silence before Tyler sauntered in from the kitchen with that smug half-grin that always made me want to slap the puberty out of him. He had a protein shake in one hand and his phone in the other, like he'd just finished scrolling through gym memes or arguing with strangers about creatine dosages. "Oh!" that he said, pointing his thumb toward the disaster. "Relax, Jess. It's not like you can't afford another." I blinked once. Then again. I still hadn't spoken. My voice was somewhere deep in my chest, trapped behind the damn lump of rage and disbelief rising like acid. "Wait," I finally managed. "Are you serious? What the hell happened?" He shrugged, took a lazy sip of his chalky drink, and mumbled something about accident and wasn't on purpose before collapsing onto the couch like nothing had happened. My laptop, my work laptop, the one I'd picked up just 3 weeks ago after saving for 6 months, the one with every piece of my current security contracts stored on an encrypted drive, was sitting there like a dead bird no one wanted to touch. "It fell off the table or something," Tyler muttered, not even looking at me. I mean, it shouldn't have been sitting there if it was that important. I felt heat behind my eyes. Not tears, rage. Years of it, stacked like bricks. Because this wasn't just about the laptop, and we both knew it. "What were you even doing near it?" I snapped, stepping closer, my voice getting sharper with each word. "I don't leave it lying around. It was in my case last night. I packed it myself." He rolled his eyes like I was the unreasonable one, then gestured toward the chair beside the coffee table. "I was trying to find the charger for the PlayStation. Thought maybe it was under that black bag. Didn't know it was your laptop. You picked up a 5-pound bag and just dropped it?" I asked, barely believing what I was hearing. Well, he smirked, and this was the moment I swear something cracked in me. It slipped. "My bad. Look, you're always working. You've got money coming out your ears. I'll Venmo you $20 or whatever." That's when I snapped. Not loud. Not wild. Worse, I went quiet. Real quiet. The kind of quiet that made Mom's footsteps freeze at the top of the stairs. $20, I repeated. "You think this costs $20? Tyler shrugged again. "I dunno. 6 figures, right? You'll bounce back." That sentence, that smug, careless little string of words, might have been the most insulting thing I'd heard from him in my life, and that's saying something, considering this was the same brother who once used my toothbrush to clean his sneakers and thought it was funny. Mom came down just in time to see me crouched by the laptop, slowly picking up pieces like I was salvaging bones from a crime scene. "Jessie," she started, already in that weary tone, "don't start." I'm sure it was an accident. I didn't look up. I couldn't. My hands were shaking. Dad walked in behind her, yawning, holding his damn golf mug like he was gearing up for another Saturday of pretending not to notice the world crumbling around him. "What's all the noise about?" he asked, scratching his neck. "Tyler broke my laptop," I said, standing now, holding the mangled screen in my hands like an exhibit in court. "By accident," Tyler added, lounging deeper into the cushions like a prince awaiting a back rub. Dad made a face like this was all beneath him. "It's just a computer. Insurance won't cover it." I looked at them, the three of them, and something in my chest, something that had been patient for 39 years, finally got up, stretched its legs, and said, "Enough." "No," I said. "It's not just a computer. It's work. It's my clients. It's the reason I could afford to keep the lights on when Tyler forgot to pay the bill last year and Mom forgot to tell me." No one spoke. Tyler looked annoyed. Mom looked sad. Dad looked bored. Okay, Tyler sighed. "Jesus, I'll pay you back. I'll Venmo you. Like I said, $20, right?" And just like that, the world split into two parts, before that sentence and after. Because what he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that I wasn't just going to let this go. Not this time. Not again. I looked him dead in the eyes and smiled, the kind of smile that should have made him nervous. "Sure, Tyler," I said, my voice smooth as glass. "Let's start with 20. And I walked out. That was the beginning. The moment everything shifted. The first step toward payback. And trust me, the next ones would leave a mark. There's a point in every woman's life when she realizes that keeping the peace is just another way of giving away pieces of herself. And for me, that realization came while I sat in my car outside a strip mall repair shop, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were bone white. I wasn't just mad anymore. I was humiliated. Not because of the laptop itself, though God knows that thing was worth more than Tyler's entire car, but because of what it represented. The 1,000 quiet ways I'd swallowed disrespect from my family over the years just to avoid being called dramatic, bitter, ungrateful, or worse, selfish. I had been the fixer since I was old enough to tie my own shoes. The one who did the dishes without being asked, who packed her own lunch, who kept her grades up and her mouth shut. I was the kid who learned not to ask for second chances because no one was handing them out, while Tyler grew up on a steady diet of get-out-of-jail-free cards served with a side of he didn't mean it. When he flunked sophomore year, Dad blamed the teachers. When he crashed Mom's Subaru into the neighbor's fence, they paid for the repairs and grounded him for all of 3 days, during which he still got to play Xbox in his room and eat dinner brought to him on a tray. And me? I got a scholarship, a full-time job, a student loan I paid off by 29, and a family that still acted like I was just being lucky. So no, I wasn't walking into that repair shop to just get a quote. I was walking in to confirm what I already knew in my gut. Tyler hadn't just dropped my laptop. He'd messed with it. He'd picked it up, snooped where he didn't belong, and broke it trying to get into something he had no business touching. The guy behind the counter, mid-30s, greasy ponytail, friendly in a tech bro kind of way, recognized me right away from my earlier call. Yep, he said, dragging out the syllables like he was trying to remember how to pronounce them. "Jesse, right? Black Dell, ultra-thin, solid-state drive." I nodded and waited while he pulled the form from behind the counter. "So, there's some bad news," he started, tapping the paper with a chewed-up pen. "The screen is toast, the hinge is cracked clean through, and the drive, well, I'm not a miracle worker. We can send it to our data recovery guys, but it's gonna cost extra, probably close to $700 just for the attempt." He handed me the form, and as I looked down, my eyes skimmed over the technical breakdown, screen replacement, chassis damage, biometric lock failure, until something at the bottom caught me so off guard I actually laughed out loud. The name on the check-in form said Tyler M. in giant blue ink letters, scrawled like a middle school detention slip. Under reason for repair, it said, "Dropped it. Won't turn on. Maybe screen?" And under contact info, it was his email, the same one he used for his fantasy football league and Tinder matches. I stared at it for a long second, like I had just discovered a secret compartment in my own house. The technician raised an eyebrow. "That's not you." I shook my head slowly, then smiled in a way that probably made him uncomfortable. "No," I said, "but I know exactly who it is." Here's where I should tell you that I was calm, measured, and level-headed. But the truth is, when I stepped outside and got into my car, I let out a laugh so sharp it startled the woman in the parking spot beside me. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was vindicated. There it was. Proof. Evidence. Something Tyler couldn't lie his way out of. And the funniest part? He had literally written himself into the crime scene. The kicker? I asked the guy if I could get a printed copy of the form for my warranty dispute, and he happily handed it over, stapled, signed, and timestamped. Driving home, I started calculating how much this whole mess had cost me. New laptop? Probably close to $2,000. Lost time? A full work week. And then there was the principle of it all, the insult that kept ringing in my ears like a bad song on repeat. At one point, I said out loud, just to myself, to the empty car, he owes me at least 1,575 cents, which is, like, almost $2,000. It took me a second to realize I'd said cents instead of dollars, but I was too wired to care. The rage was too delicious. Let them correct me later. I parked in front of my house and sat there for another minute, holding that repair form like it was a court summons. Because in a way, it was. It was the beginning of a reckoning. A receipt for every time I'd paid the price for someone else's bullshit. Tyler thought I was just going to move on. He thought I'd shake it off, maybe rant about it to a friend, and then replace the laptop out of pocket like I always did, fix things, smile politely, move on. But what he didn't realize is that I was tired. Tired of pretending it didn't sting every time he got away with being the golden screw-up. Tired of being the emotional punching bag just because I had a career and a backbone. I took the form, slid it into a file folder, and labeled it in big black marker, Payback, Phase 1. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't walking away. I wasn't turning the other cheek or smoothing things over or letting it slide. This time, I was keeping score. And Tyler? He just made the front page. There's a specific kind of silence that falls over a room right before a storm breaks, the sort of quiet that doesn't come from peace, but from the breath everyone holds because they know, deep down, that someone's about to say something they can't take back. That's the silence I walked into when I called a family meeting on a Tuesday night, something so rare in our house it might as well have been a solar eclipse. I stood in the doorway to the living room holding the repair quote like a lit match, and I watched their faces, Mom perched on the edge of the couch with her usual worried mouse expression. Dad with the remote still in his hand like football highlights were more important than real life, and Tyler, slouched with one foot on the coffee table like he had all the time in the world and no guilt whatsoever. I didn't sit down because I didn't come to make them comfortable. I didn't yell either because this wasn't one of those wild, screaming showdowns you see on reality TV. This was colder, quieter, sharper, the kind of confrontation that slices instead of explodes. I cleared my throat and spoke as evenly as I could, holding the paper up like a professor unveiling someone's plagiarized essay. This, I said, is the repair estimate for my laptop. The one Tyler broke. The one I use for work. Tyler rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath, probably another weak joke or deflection, but I ignored him because this time he wasn't going to squirm out of it with a smirk and a shrug. It's nearly $2,000 to fix, I continued, my voice steady but not soft. That's not including the data loss, the time off, or the fact that you didn't even tell me you dropped it off for repairs. The name on the intake form? Your name, Tyler. Signed. In blue ink. Your handwriting. You admitted fault, to a stranger. Just not to me. The room went still. Tyler's face froze for a second, then contorted into something between confusion and defense. But before he could open his mouth, I walked over and set the paper down on the coffee table, exactly in front of where Dad's feet rested like a king's throne. You think I'm exaggerating? Go ahead. Read it. Mom leaned forward first, her eyes flicking across the page like she was hoping to find a typo that would absolve her baby boy. But there wasn't one. Just hard, clear facts, the price, the damage, and Tyler's name in ink at the bottom, like a signature on a confession. Tyler tried to laugh. Seriously? You're bringing this up like it's a murder trial or something. It's a laptop, Jesse. You're acting like I killed your dog. And then came the line. The one I'll probably hear in my head for years. Dad, still not looking away from the television, muttered, "It's just a laptop." That was it. That's when the match hit the gasoline. That's when I stopped pretending I wasn't done. Right, I said, louder this time, sharper. Just a laptop. Just like it was just your car insurance I paid for the last 4 months. Just like it was just the electric bill I covered when you forgot to send the check. Just like it was just your phone line I kept active so Mom wouldn't find out you'd defaulted on your part of the family plan again. Their heads turned like I'd slapped them. Tyler went pale. Mom's lips parted but no sound came out. Dad put the remote down like it suddenly weighed too much. You think I don't notice? I asked, voice rising now, but not out of control, just alive. You think I don't keep track? I've been carrying this family like a mule since I was old enough to have a debit card. And every time I say no, every time I push back, I get told I'm too harsh or too proud or too cold. I didn't ask you to do any of that, Tyler said, defensive now. Sitting up straighter like that would somehow make him look more responsible. I never asked for help. No, I said, nodding. You never do. Because you don't have to. Because you know someone will swoop in and clean up the mess, and for years, that someone has been me. Mom finally found her voice, soft and hesitant like she was scared of where this would go. Jesse, we're sorry. I didn't realize you were doing all that. Why didn't you say something sooner? Because every time I tried, I said, looking her dead in the eyes, you told me I was being dramatic. Or selfish. Or too intense. So I shut up. And I paid. And I smiled. The room stayed quiet for a long time after that, the kind of quiet that makes the truth feel heavier. No one reached for the paper. No one denied it. They didn't have to, the guilt was already settling in, thick and suffocating. Tyler stood, looking like he wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words, like every excuse he usually leaned on had dried up in the heat of being finally, undeniably caught. I'm done fixing things, I said as I turned toward the hallway. Don't worry, I'll send an invoice next time. And with that, I left them sitting in the stillness they had created, the one I refused to carry anymore. Because when someone finally stops being the fallback plan, the whole damn family starts to realize how shaky the house really is. And me? I was just getting started. It didn't take long after that living room explosion for the tide to start turning in ways none of them expected, least of all Tyler, who had spent most of his life floating through problems like they were soft puddles instead of consequences that might one day rise up and drown him. For me, it was like a switch had flipped, not in anger, not in vengeance, not even in bitterness, really, just in clarity. After nearly 4 decades of carrying other people's weight like it was part of my birthright, I realized I could simply stop. I didn't have to announce it with fireworks or fanfare. I just had to unplug the damn system and let them feel the blackout. The first thing I did was log into my bank account and cancel the autopay on Tyler's car insurance, which I had been covering since the previous fall, thanks to a little lie about a temporary overdraft situation that somehow never resolved itself. I didn't tell him. I didn't text. I didn't drop hints. I let silence speak because I'd come to understand that my voice, logical, composed, reasonable, had always been just background noise to people who weren't listening anyway. Next came the group phone plan. I shut off his line without warning. One day he was streaming music and texting God knows who, and the next, the screen read no service because, well, there was no longer a free ride. I stopped paying Mom and Dad's electricity bill, too, something I'd quietly picked up during a rough patch 3 years ago and never been officially asked to continue, yet somehow never stopped being expected to. I didn't ghost them, not exactly. I just stopped playing my role. I stepped out of the play and the stage lights burned out on their own. It took exactly 11 days before my phone rang with Mom's number flashing on the screen like a siren. I didn't answer the first call or the second or the fifth. I let them pile up in my voicemail box like junk mail, each one more frantic than the last. It wasn't until the 12th message, the one where she was crying so hard she couldn't finish her sentence, that I even considered calling back, not out of guilt, but out of curiosity. Because I wanted to know what broke first. Turned out it was Tyler's car. Towed from outside his job because the insurance had lapsed and he got pulled over without proof. Apparently, the impound fees were over $1,000, and the card he used to always borrow from Dad had already been maxed out on something stupid, protein powder, maybe, or LED lights for his bedroom. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the post office and mailed them something they'd never expect in a million years, a notarized, itemized document titled Family Financial Contributions by Jessica M., years 2012 to 2024. Every dollar I'd ever spent to prop them up, keep the lights on, get cars fixed, cover groceries, pay off overdrafts, book emergency medical appointments, and even send flowers to Nana's funeral when Tyler forgot, it was all there. Line by line, month by month, total, $31,789. And you better believe I rounded it up to an even $32,000, just for the poetic justice. I thought that might be the end of it. I really did. I thought they'd finally get the message, or at least take a long hard look at the mirror I'd held up to them. But that's the thing about entitled people, they don't respond to facts. They respond to disruption. They respond when their comforts are threatened. And sometimes, they respond with desperation so thick it covers up everything else. 3 days after I sent the letter, Mom showed up at my doorstep with tears in her eyes and trembling hands. She looked smaller than usual, older somehow, like the weight of everything I'd said had finally settled into her bones. But what she said next knocked the air right out of me. "Jessie," she said, voice cracked and wet with panic, "we found out something. It's Tyler. He opened a credit card in your name. Last year." I thought it was a mistake at first. But the statements started coming. 6,000, maybe more. "Jessie, I didn't know. I swear. It's a strange thing, the way betrayal sits in your chest. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rage. It just settles, cold and heavy, like snow piling up on your ribs until you can't breathe right." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at her while her face crumbled into 100 apologies she couldn't even say out loud. He didn't just borrow money. He didn't just destroy my laptop or laugh in my face or take advantage of the fact that I kept my life in order while his was a mess. He had crossed a line I couldn't ignore, even if I wanted to. I told Mom I needed time to think, but the second she left, I made exactly 3 calls, one to the credit card company, one to a fraud lawyer, and one to the police department's financial crimes unit. Filing the report wasn't easy. It felt like cutting off a limb. But it was clean, legal, final. A paper trail, at last, to match the emotional one. Tyler had made a choice when he signed my name. Now I was making one too. Because forgiveness is one thing. And pressing charges? That's just business. They told me I was being cruel, too cold, too dramatic, too vindictive, as if doing the bare minimum to protect yourself from theft and identity fraud was some kind of moral failing, as if filing a police report was a betrayal worse than the crime that caused it. But I didn't flinch. Not once. When Mom called again, voice shaking like she was physically holding back tears, begging me to reconsider for the sake of keeping the family together, I just listened in silence and hung up when she finished. When Dad left a one-line voicemail saying, "You've made your point. Now be the bigger person," I didn't even bother playing it all the way through. And when Tyler sent me a message through one of his friends, something like, "You really gonna take this to court over a couple grand?" I didn't respond. I just forwarded it to my lawyer. The court date came quicker than any of us expected, probably because identity theft tied to that level of financial damage tends to move up the priority list. It was a weekday morning in a cold, beige room with bad lighting and the kind of chairs that make you feel guilty just for sitting in them. I wore black, not for drama, but because I wanted to look like someone you don't dismiss. Tyler walked in wearing khakis and a wrinkled polo, looking like a kid dragged to detention, still wearing that stupid I don't know how this happened face he'd worn since we were teenagers. Mom sat behind him, hands folded in her lap like she was praying to some invisible god that I'd come to my senses at the last minute. Dad stood with his arms crossed, jaw clenched so tight I could almost hear it grind. I didn't sit with them. I sat on the opposite side of the aisle, calm and collected, like someone who had been preparing for this her whole life, because maybe I had. I didn't need to say much. That was the beauty of it. I had documents, bank statements, fraud reports, a notarized timeline, the intake form from the laptop repair shop, screenshots of his email address tied to the account, the receipt with his full name signed at the bottom. It was all so obvious, so stupidly avoidable, that even the judge looked mildly insulted by the waste of time. At one point, when Tyler tried to claim he thought the card was authorized because I had helped him before, the judge raised an eyebrow so high I thought it might lift off his forehead. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need to argue. The facts did the talking. And as I watched Tyler squirm, watched his mouth fumble over half-truths and flimsy justifications, I felt something shift inside me, not joy, not satisfaction, but stillness. Like I had finally stopped bleeding from a wound I didn't even know was open. By the end of it, the judgment was clear. He was found liable for the credit card fraud, ordered to repay the full amount plus interest, along with a fine and mandatory financial counseling. He tried to protest, said he didn't have that kind of money, but the judge didn't blink. Responsibility wasn't about convenience. And for once in his life, Tyler was being held accountable by someone who didn't love him enough to let him slide. After the ruling, Mom tried to approach me in the hallway, tears spilling down her face, saying things like he didn't mean to, and he's just lost, and we didn't raise him to be like this. But all I could think was, yes, you did. Maybe not intentionally. But through every soft excuse, every quiet cover-up, every time you made me apologize just for standing up for myself, you were teaching him that nothing was ever really his fault. And now here we were, watching the invoice finally come due. I didn't go home to celebrate. I didn't post about it or call anyone or buy a drink. I just drove in silence until I found myself parked outside Tyler's apartment, because there was still one thing left to deal with, a few folders of paperwork I needed to retrieve. Things I'd once left behind when I helped him apply for his first real job years ago. He never sent them back. Never responded to my request. I figured it would be a 5-minute stop, in and out, no emotion. But when I let myself in with the spare key I knew he'd never thought to change, I found something else entirely. There, in a plastic storage bin beneath a pile of junk mail and unopened gym coupons, was a bundle of envelopes tied with a fraying blue ribbon. I recognized the handwriting instantly, our grandmother's, the same looping script she used on every birthday card, every Christmas letter, every note she left us tucked between the pages of our books. I hadn't seen her writing since she passed away 5 years ago. I sat down on the floor and untied the ribbon with fingers that suddenly felt like they didn't belong to me. Every letter was addressed to me. Not one had been opened. Dozens of them, dated over the span of nearly a decade. Some from when I was in college, others just a year before she died. Notes full of encouragement, affection, stories she'd wanted to share, things she must have mailed to the house, assuming they'd get to me. And Tyler had kept them. Hidden them. Never said a word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, surrounded by things that were meant for me, thinking about all the ways I'd been erased, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, piece by piece, for years. Not forgotten, exactly. Just misplaced. Disregarded. So yeah, maybe it wasn't about the laptop. Maybe it never was. Do you ever wonder what part of yourself you lose when you finally stand up? People call it revenge when you stop playing nice. But maybe it's just remembering who you were before they wore you down.